Hey everybody, welcome to the PC Perspective Podcast. This is episode 265, and that whistle you heard in the background was not me. I believe that was Josh's text message.
Somebody followed me.
You better check that text message. Oh, as a follow? Oh, congratulations.
I've got 3 followers now.
Today is August 21st, 2013. I am your host, Ryan Shrout.
I'm Jeremy Hellstrom.
I'm Josh Walrath.
And I am a non-sick Allyn Malventano.
Physically, yes. Mentally, questionably.
Never.
Yeah. So we've got some interesting things to talk about this week. But I have a question first, and I'm going to do this in the podcast because I'm not really sure how interested other people are going to be. How much do you know about radio frequencies? Anybody?
I know a little.
Okay. So say you had a garage door that had an opener, and all the openers stop working at the same time. It's not batteries. And also, like, the wireless remote control you have for your ceiling fan in your bedroom also kind of stops working in the same time frame. What do you do?
You have something
I think
interfering.
you move away from the NSA outpost that you have by your house.
Yeah.
It's really weird. Like, this happened about a year ago, and then it went away for a few months, and then it came back, and then it went away, and now it's back again. Is it possible that, like, one of my neighbors is using, like, a really crappy CFL bulb or something like that, and that could be doing
They're
it?
jamming you, Ryan.
I thought there was some method of, like, if you suspect something like that's going on, I thought you can get a hold of, like, some form of FCC stuff, and they, like, come out with a,
Spectrometer.
Yeah. Directional thing and try to figure out where all the interference is coming from.
What you do is you Twitter, I'm going to bomb President and they'll automatically come to your house and do that for you.
Okay.
Yeah, they'll clear your spectrum right up.
Yeah, I bet they will. It's so weird that this like, I don't know, it's bugging the crap out of me. I went so far as to all the control I had in my house where I literally turned the breaker off to everything in the house except for the garage door opener itself, and still had interference issues. It's worse at night than it is at the day.
Now, this is a weird thing. Did you try shutting down everything that was like a wireless device at the same time?
Yeah. So like I said, I literally turned off every breaker in the house except for the one in the garage.
That's not a wireless. I mean, like battery-powered, like phones and laptops and stuff.
Anything that can be given a signal.
Because here's why I bring this up. I had an iPhone fail, an iPhone 5 that was only a couple weeks old, and it failed in such a way that the radio started spamming just noise. It started kicking other devices off my network just from an iPhone.
That could have been Steve Jobs talking to you from the dead.
Ryan?
I mean, it was the weirdest thing. I thought the router was failing, but no, it was the phone.
Did your wife buy a new electronic toy?
I don't really know, but it comes in multi-month waves, so it's possible, I guess.
Ultra high frequency,
right?
These days, yeah.
It's you can't Google this problem, right? Try to type in.
You're right. You can't.
Try to type in a 3-sentence explanation of what is wrong into Google. It's like, sometimes my wireless remote controls for the garage door opener work, and sometimes they don't, and also the RF ceiling fan stops working at the same time as well. So
just Google someone sabotaging garage door. I'm sure you'll find a million people who claim that this is going on.
Right, claim, yes, but I'm not a crazy person, I don't think. So,
as we've mentioned before.
All right, let's talk a little bit about computer hardware. We posted up a review, actually Maury posted a review of the XSPC Razor GTX680 Water block. He's not on the show with us tonight, but it's a fancy looking device. Allyn, do you still water cool all your graphics cards as well?
I absolutely do.
And do you use like a setup like this, something that's, pre-configured for your graphics card?
Yeah. Usually I get them from Coolants, but any of these companies makes a pretty solid product.
Check out the lights. You like that?
Yeah, I know. That's pretty snazzy. Yeah.
It belongs in Tron. Now, if only Olivia Wilde could
I will say I tend to pair those with EVGA cards specifically because their warranty is friendly to water coolers.
He is using an EVGA card as well. right down here.
Yeah, that's probably why. I think EVGA is the only company that specifically states in their warranty, they're like, okay, look, you can put a water block on this as long as, if you're going to send it back for return, put the original heatsink back on, but, you can do what you need to for cooling otherwise, which is really cool. I really like that. That's why I buy them.
Yeah. It's in the typical Mori fashion, he takes apart every little tiny bit. Like, I would think, hey, a water block. And he is like, well, let's take it all apart. And he shows you all the individual channels that it has. And it's neat to see if you've never seen anything like that. And then he goes through a little explanation of why these particular parts are good, and the inlet channel and all that kind of stuff that I really don't know that much about, to be perfectly honest. But
yeah, looks to be a really high quality part. The important parts are the coating that they put in there. Basically, whatever's going to interface with the water.
Right.
You want the coating to be very, very corrosion resistant, and that looks like a pretty good one. So,
real quick, temperature and overclocking testing on this page here. So you can see the stock air cooler up to 55C under load with the new water cooler 21C under load. Obviously, a very dramatic difference. And then temperature, here we go, overclocked. Even overclocked, the GTX 680 was only up to 26C. And
Delta.
How is he?
Room temperature.
That's right, because he does live in Texas.
Sure. Oh yeah.
In the summertime.
You're right.
So it is actually 128, but technically.
Well, it's ambient. What does he say? Does he mention what ambient was about? Yeah, no.
So water blocks like that, especially on newer graphics cards, tend to even let you push them a little further, just because the card's running cooler.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he shows the stock GTX. This is actually a GTX 670 FTW card in EVGA, obviously. Got it up to 1228 megahertz on the core clock, which is pretty dang high. And he goes through some benchmarks and that kind of stuff. So if you're interested in water cooling, even if you don't specifically know anything about it, it's kind of cool to see. He talks about the installation process as well, and it's easier than you might think, but more difficult than obviously just plugging in a card and going with any kind of type of air cooling. So that is the XSPC Razor. I'm trying to think of how much was it. So it's $100.
What? $100, yeah.
Is that good?
It's not
bad?
bad at all.
Okay.
Yeah, that's about going right.
Yeah, it's a nice machine copper plate with all the fancy dancy things attached to it, and it seems like it's pretty adjustable with the way that they have you attach the hoses.
Yeah.
Well, the way he's tagged it is 780, 770, 760, 670. It looks like it's actually going to fit on quite a few different GPUs.
You have to be careful. Most of the time, you have to make sure it's a reference-based PCB layout.
Right.
But the websites
for
for
road
the
on a
water block,
690 or a Titan.
But the water block websites will typically have a list. They'll say specifically what brands and cards support that block.
Nice.
Okay, so check that out if you want to. Let's talk about another graphics card-based article. Josh, you finally got around to publishing the article that looks at like 100 cards from ASUS.
Yeah, it wasn't that long ago that these were sent to me. Come on.
100 cards. It took you like 150 weeks to do this. And no,
Yes.
Actually it wasn't. You did a good job.
I'm going to be talking about today the GTX 460 that's brand new from ASUS.
Hey, Ken's got one of those. That's so weird. What do we got, really?
You really want me to talk about this?
I do. I mean, I'll cut you off when I need to, but yeah.
Can I suffer a stroke in the middle of this and just stop talking?
Statistically,
sure.
it'll happen.
Statistically, you could. Realistically, probably not. Sorry.
So, ASUS, they released a bunch of cards.
Let's just wait and see when the cat comes in and starts biting at his eyeballs.
Anyway, let's go through. Yes, ASUS did send me a stack of cards, 4 to be exact. 3 of them were the new GTX 700 series, and 1 was kind of the odd guy out, the GTX 670. Now, these are all the latest batch of DirectCU 2 based cards. And if you're not familiar with DirectCU 2, well, you've been living under a rock, because this has been the pride and joy of ASUS up and down their entire line. Essentially, they like to put copper heat pipes directly against the GPU to get the maximum thermal dissipation on any kind of application.
All right.
Thermal dissipation on any kind of application.
Good job so far. Great.
Hard touching.
Rock solid.
Why doesn't
Rock solid.
ASUS hire me to do branding? I don't understand. Tighten up
Because
your
you
graphics.
cost way too much money.
No, I don't. You know that.
Fair enough. So what's the first
So
card?
anyway, DirectCU, they're well-designed cards. They're non-reference cards. They have pretty good cooling. Now, you kind of look back through the years, and we have seen how cooling has gone. Remember the old Lead Tech boombox, GTX, or the GeForce 5900 GTX? I've got one of those up there. I'm not going to go get it. But anyway,
That's
it's
fine.
like it did 240-millimeter fans, and it looked like a serious 1980s boombox. It was awesome. We've come a long ways from that. Now these are, the highest end has a 10-centimeter fan. Most of the others got 80-millimeter fans, otherwise known as 8-centimeter for people who live in the vast majority of the rest of the world other than the U.S., Ghana, and New Guinea, I think.
So how many is that in inches?
It's like 1.5 Joshes.
Ooh.
That's like 3 inches.
So it's like 3 or 4 inches. Right, I gotcha.
Something
Yeah.
like that.
All right.
So anyway, we'll talk about one at a time. The 670 was an interesting one.
We're going 670 first? Okay.
Or should we do the 780 first?
No, let's
because
go
I
up.
went from
Let's go
biggest
up.
to smallest, which kind of goes along with my family. Sure, GTX 780. This was the big monster.
All right.
Obviously, a 780. It's currently installed in another machine for testing purposes, and so I can't actually show you the card. But can. The magic of internets. This has got the 2 big fans. If you look at the fan on the left, it is their new combination axial radial fan that kind of has the features of both.
Yeah.
It adds extra turbulence, but not a whole lot of extra noise. And so you get better cooling over the GPU with that fan than you do with a standard axial fan, which is the one on the right.
Okay. So
But the
why?
combination of such
what-
gives really,
ahead.
really, really good cooling.
Okay. All right. I was gonna say why split it?
Maybe cost, maybe noise, and probably they're looking at the noise versus the extra cooling that they're going to actually get with the 2 of those Cooltech fans is what they're called. I think I never got an extreme answer about that, but I think it probably is more about noise
All right.
rather than cooling performance. But anyway, another interesting aspect of this is it's one of the first video cards with a 10-millimeter heat pipe.
So many millimeters.
I know. That's one thick pipe going directly on your GPU.
All right.
So that's one of their big things. They've put a lot of time and effort into that 10-millimeter fan heat pipe because apparently producing these things above 8 millimeters gets kind of problematic in terms of ductility, heat transfer, all this other stuff. They spent quite a bit of money to get the 10-millimeter one working, and so it actually improves performance over the 8-millimeter ones, which we previously have called super pipes.
Super duper.
Yeah, MSI will love us for talking about super pipes in the middle of an ASUS review. Again, it's a non-reference design. It's a 10-phase board, 8 phases to the GPU, 2 phases to the memory. Nice thing about it is it's got that big backplate for not just support and protection. Just for support and protection, but under the backplate, right behind the GPU, is kind of a mini GPU reactor, which MSI released a year ago with their 7970 Lightning. It's not as big. It doesn't have as many capacitors, but they call it the SAP caps. SAP caps. And, it provides a little bit more juice to the GPU as well as more even voltage control. It's got the super alloy power components.
This thing right here.
Well, I mean, I'm showing you the choke because the chokes are actually kind of interesting. If you look at chokes on multiple things, if you remember the old motherboards, it's the coil. It's the big ceramic circle with the coil of copper wire around it.
Right.
That's a choke. Now, they had a problem with those in that they would sometimes get hot and they would make a lot of noise. So they started kind of capping those off.
Yep.
And that kind of cut down on some of the noise but increased the heat. What they're doing now is, they get the coil, and they get that in there, and then they put this in a press with these other materials, and it cramps everything down, and it's a solid alloy mixture that improves upon heat. There's no noise whatsoever. There's no coil noise whatsoever. And it's kind of funny because I've seen pictures of some of these supposed solid coils that they actually take them off, and it's just a plastic cap over the standard copper and ceramic coil. So ASUS doesn't do that.
Reduced coil whine is good because I test a lot of video cards, and it's immediately, their open test bed, it's immediately obvious when somebody has used cheap product in that regard, because you get, whine that changes in tune with the frame rate of the game that you're using at that time, which I always thought was kind of funny.
Which is kind of funny because you like the wee type
That's what it
sound.
sounds like. It's what it sounds like.
Yeah, it really does. And so it's overclocked, not by very much, but it's got some bigger legs. You can read about how much I was able to overclock it, which is a significant amount. And, overall, this was my first GTX 780, and it's very fast. It can do triple monitor gaming without an issue. I mean, it's a cut-down Titan.
Yep.
But still significantly faster than a GTX 680, significantly faster than a HD 7970. And the only things that beat it, of course, are the dual GPU cards as well as the aforementioned GTX Titan from NVIDIA.
All right. Now
we can see why NVIDIA just called it the Titan rather than GTX 695 or whatever, because it's going to be around for a while.
All right, so that was one of the 4 cards. You got
one of the 4
3
cards.
other cards
the second
to describe.
one is kind of interesting because it's...
Hey.
What?
You have to be faster on the rest of these cards.
Okay.
But the cards are getting slower.
No, front. They sent the GTX 770. Now, of course, this is a slightly improved GTX 680.
Mm-hmm.
It's got the nice thing about this, and what I previously did not talk about with the GTX 780, you remember the old DirectCU products from ASUS? The high-end were all triple slots. Well, they finally redesigned their cooling systems to be just as effective but exist in 2 slots. So this is a big win. And the GTX 770 was probably one of the first cards that came out with the double slot, because if you look at the shroud, it looks like the old DirectCU 2 from yesteryear.
Right.
It's got the old design. It doesn't look as snazzy as the 780. Some people are unhappy about that, but you know what? It still cools really well. It doesn't have the Cool Tech fan on it, but because it's essentially a hopped-up GTX 680, it might not need that level of cooling. And so, they saved a few pennies, and they're not really sacrificing anything in terms of thermals. It's still a high-end card. It's about $10 more than the reference design, which I think is kind of money well spent. Again, non-reference design. It's got the sap caps on the back. It's got the plate on the back. Helps with some cooling by spreading some heat across some of the components on the back. It was a great card for the price. The first time I actually done a 680/770. It does not have the 10 millimeter heat pipe, but it does have a pair of the 8 millimeter. Cooling was excellent with this. Overclocking was really good. I think I took up the memory without increasing the GPU up to like 8400 megahertz. I mean, it was just way up there. Once you start clocking the GPU up, then you got to kind of take the memory down. But just in stock clock, I mean, it really went up high. Overclocked well. Excellent quality. Nothing fell apart when I shook it hard. Threw it against the wall once or twice, And I had JJ on the phone. Hey, JJ, listen to this. Bang! And it's like, oh. Anyway. So, yeah, it was a nice card. Pack-ins are not fantastic, but it's only a couple of bucks more than a reference design, and you get better cooling and, a good 3-year warranty. The third one is, another interesting card. It's the 760. It's the first time, again, I got a chance to check out a GTX 760, which is, again, a GK104 base GPU. Do you think we've seen enough of these already?
There's been like literally 18 different models of GK104.
Yeah, this is like
19 models of GK104.
The 8800 GT, 8800 GTX, 8800, 9800 GT, GTX. Yeah,
it's getting up there.
But yeah, it really kind of is. They use it for everything. But this has multiple streaming multiprocessors disabled. It's actually slower than a GTX 670, but it's not that much slower. It's their new $250 price point, and they have given this the business as well. There's a couple of really interesting things. Oh, what? Go ahead.
Giving them the business.
I like getting the business. So it's got the two bigger fans. It's got plenty of cooling.
Right.
And this is actually a really small PCB. I mean, if you scroll down a little bit, you can see exactly how small it is and how much overhang they get. We could call that the Dunlop fan, because the fan Dunlop over the PCB.
Ugh.
You get it?
Ugh.
So anyway.
Unfortunately.
I use that with my belts, but anyway. There are a couple of interesting things about this. It's got a single 8-pin PCI Express power connector right down there. Mm-hmm. You don't need 2 6-pins. You just use a single 8-pin. It's got the direct power. Well, they've got so many stinking technological terms, but essentially...
But look, it has math in it.
Math and things and stuff. Wattage. Essentially, okay, boards at this level are maybe 6 to 8 layers in size. When you've got to do data, power, and ground layers, routing things becomes much more interesting, especially when you're right around a GPU that has thousands of connections. That maybe 2,000 ball VGA-based thing. Gosh dang it. Substrate.
Yeah.
You're going to have a hard time routing everything. And keeping at those layers and doing good power delivery is an issue. So what they've done is they have this nice little external bridge that goes over the back of the GPU that helps to deliver power to the memory, to the other half of the GPU, and it does so very efficiently because it's not as much resistance, doesn't increase heat dramatically because they're trying to push more electrons through the layers that they have. And so it actually works. And again, this is a nice running card. It's only 10 or 20 bucks more expensive than a reference design. It cools really well. It overclocks really well. And, it's just a nice product. I think all of these kind of got an award because I would buy them if I was in the market for them, and I'm just not whistling Dixie.
Right.
So anyway, that's the GTX 760. An interesting card, to say the least. Now, the final one, and the one that I was going to do first, I gotta clear my throat.
No, and he meant to mute, and instead he hung up on us. I gotta cough. Click, disconnect. That's fine. I was getting tired of listening to him anyway for a little bit.
Have you ever cleared your throat so loud that you disconnected your Skype?
You mean, have you clicked the wrong button?
that might have been it as well.
Hang on, Josh, wait.
That moment when you clear your throat and watch sort of arc over to the disconnect button.
The buttons are very close on the software, right? If we're going to be honest about it. You apparently came back not in HD quality, and so your audio was spiked very high. Remember how we were talking about how Josh was the lowest one?
Yeah. Now I'm the highest.
Now you're the highest. So he's fixing you up here. So go ahead, Josh, and let's talk about the 670.
30 miles away from the border of Colorado.
Yeah, so you are the highest.
But anyhow, all right. The GTX 670 DC DirectCU Mini.
All those words.
This is the GTX 670 that they designed to fit in small form factor computers, where there's not a lot of space, maybe not a whole lot of cooling, and they did a rather unique design with this piece of equipment. What's interesting is they use the exact PCB for this one as they do the GTX 760, so it has the same direct power. It uses the same single 8-pin PCI Express power connection. And this was the first product to use the Cooltech fan, the combination radial axial fan.
This one,
and it has one massive. What the heck do they call it? It's not the heat pipe. It's the big flat thermal unit.
Heat sink.
No, it's okay. It is a heat sink, but vapor chamber.
Oh, okay.
Vapor chamber.
Gotcha. Right.
So it's got a massive vapor chamber, a bunch of aluminum fins, and then this Cooltech fan. This did run warmer than the rest. There is no if and or buts about it. I mean, you can only do so much with physics and surface area, but it did very, very well. It didn't overclock to any extreme level, but it was able to get some. But once you started doing that, it got pretty loud. The GTX 670 is faster than the GTX 760 by a fairly significant amount. And so you do pay for it. But again, it's not as fast as a GTX 680 or a 770. So you got to take that into consideration when you're making your build. And if the really small space that this takes up is going to trump other things like performance and thermal features.
So which of these, this article focused on a lot of different products, and I hate to ask which one was your favorite because it depends on what your kind of price point is. But which one was your favorite?
I like the GTX 780 because it just kicked ass.
You like it because it's faster and better.
It's fast and it's big and it's quiet.
It's got more GBs.
It's got bigger GBs with 3 GBs rather than 2. And when you're doing triple monitor gaming, it does help a little bit, especially in some of the newer things. So, wrapping it all up, ASUS has totally revamped their DirectCU 2 lineup on the NVIDIA side, and it's probably leading us into later this fall when they revamp the DirectCU 2 on the AMD side.
Spoilers.
There's no spoilers.
Oh, okay.
But anyhow, DC2, it's the real deal. It's not that much more expensive than a reference. It gives the users a lot of extra juice to work with. And they're just nice, quiet, well-made products at a decent price point.
Can't ask for much more than that.
Ken asked or can't?
Can't. You can. You'd be an asshole.
Ken can ask for many things, and, he's got more Twitter followers. So.
By the way, Ken wanted me to point out that he could have designed that PCB just fine because a couple weeks ago he designed one that had about 40 traces on it.
Yeah.
It's all he's wanted to say. What else do we have? Lee posted up a review of the Antec High Current Pro Platinum 850 watt power supply. It's a platinum, 80 plus platinum power supply, so it is incredibly efficient. He actually liked it quite a bit. It has a 7-year warranty, which is great. And 850 watts should be enough to really address anybody's power consumption needs. But
unless you want to string 2 of them together.
Well, so that's the interesting thing. So I believe this series of power supply I'm trying to remember what page was that commentary on.
Page 4, I think.
Yeah, well, he summarizes on the last page. So, Antec released something called OC Link, and that is the capability to string 2 power supplies together. One as master, one as slave. And if you have a whole lot of components in your system, you're going on quad SLI, quad Titans, and you've got 19 SSDs and hard drives and stuff in there. Yeah, and you've got a 900D to fit this in. Then what you do is you could have, let's say you have an 850 watt master, and then you have like a 650 watt slave or another 850 watt, and they connect through something called the OC Link. And This is reading from the review. Under normal operating conditions, OC Link functions perfectly as advertised, which is basically when you start the master power supply, because that's the only one that's hooked up to the motherboard, it thus starts the secondary power supply at the same time. And when you shut down the system, it sends the shutdown signal over to the secondary, and they all kind of shut down in tandem. He says, however, we found that that if the OC Link slave power supply doesn't start up, maybe it's unplugged, or the switch on the back is turned off, or it encounters a fault and shuts down on its own through overload or high temp or short circuit, the system continues running with just one power supply, which could potentially put up some expensive hardware at risk. So the problem being that because there's no active communication between the two power supplies, they don't know exactly when one is on and when one is off. The primary just sends the signal to turn it on, and it sends the signal to turn it off. But if the second one turns off, it doesn't do the same in that way. Hey, I'm shutting down, you need to shut down too. So you could, if you hook up your graphics cards to your secondary power supply, they might not get power while the PCI Express bus and the rest of the system is running, which would be probably bad. I don't know how bad. Maybe it would just crash. But it's one of those things that he had an issue with. We had a good discussion back and forth with Antec about it. They understood the concerns and said it was something they would look at for like the next revision of OC Link. So
I was thinking if you put the 24-pin ATX cable on the slave, second its power is gone, your system is going to shut down.
Say that again?
So if you put the actual ATX connector, if you're powering the board from the slave PSU, the second it goes, you're going to shut down. Like it doesn't have a chance to try and power anything because now the board is not getting power, period. It's not going to feed back through the PCI connectors or anything.
I don't know. We'd have to ask Lee about that.
I don't want to try it with mine.
He's saying that Ken is saying if you turn on the power supply on the board, which power supply is it going to turn on then, right? So if it turns on the slave, it's not going to send the signal over to the first. So you've kind of have to have the master one on there, yeah. So it's an interesting product, even if you don't want to use the OC Link feature, though. It does. He gave it good ratings across the board for good efficiency, clean outputs, no AC ripple or very low AC ripple, I should say, and very quiet at all, but the highest power levels. And then how many amps are we talking about here? We've got to check our arc welding issue. Where does it say that?
154? No, 179.
179 amps.
Yeah.
179 amps, really?
I'm sorry, Alan.
No, I'm looking at the OC Link one. So
yeah, there's no 179 amps on that mother, huh?
That's with both of them.
Oh, okay. All right, that's fine too.
Because what a high-end, like a 1200 Water has 88 amps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Alan, how many amps do we need to arc weld again?
You actually don't need that much, depending on what you're doing. The more current, the deeper you can.
I did challenge. I challenged
the thicker metal you can weld.
I challenged Lee that we wanted to do a video of that, so we'll see. We'll see how that works. And finally, the last review we posted up this week is actually from Steve Chardine, who did a review of the Lenovo IdeaPad Yoga 11S. You may remember he did a review of the Yoga 11, which was the Windows RT Tegra 3 powered device. This is actually the Intel powered, standard Windows 8 powered convertible Ultrabook, and it was interesting to see his comparisons between the two devices. Obviously, they run completely different operating systems, they run completely different ecosystems, and you can run all of your applications on the 11S that you could not necessarily run on 11, and it's more and more likely that Windows RT may be kind of a dead thing, maybe? No. I don't know. They're saying they're doing another Surface, but like Dell discontinued theirs, and
ASUS lost money on theirs.
Yeah,
ASUS will sell them as long as they've got a keyboard attached. MSA is just no more.
Yeah, he actually put some pictures on the first page of this review comparing the 11 to the 11S, and it's actually the 11's a little bit thinner, a little bit smaller than the 11. Well, which I guess makes sense, being powered by an ARM part. And you can also see here the 11S has these air vents that the Yoga 11 did not need. So it's obviously, you're going to generate different heat. The battery life is going to be lower on the S, but you're going to have a lot more, things to do on the 11S than you would with the standard 11. So it did get a silver award. It's a very thin and light device. I think he got 6.5 hours of kind of battery life on it, so pretty good. Not the best he's seen on some of the Ultrabooks we've tested, but it's pretty good. Yeah, and this is an Ivy Bridge-based device, not a Haswell-based device. So it's going to be a little while before we see the Haswell Yoga machines out. So if you're interested in a notebook, what's the price on this? I think it's like $899 or something like that, starting something. So it's reasonably priced as well. So check that out. And that is from Steve, the IdeaPad Yoga 11S from Lenovo. This is where we in the past we'd had a video from Alex. May he rest in peace. But I'm sorry, he's not dead. He's just not doing any videos for us.
He's dead to us.
He's dead to us.
Dead to us. Oh man, I bet that makes him sad. That's all right. We're gonna skip all that though and move straight into some interesting news stories. Last week we gave away 5 EVGA Pro SLI bridges. We've sent out those emails. If you did not get an email, that means you did not win an EVGA Pro SLI bridge. I have them. I didn't have them last week, but Ken brought me one here this week. This is an EVGA 3-way Pro SLI bridge. And
not just amateur, but pro.
Not an amateur one. No, it's professional. You can see the EVGA letters in there. They actually illuminate when it's connected. I did check. Somebody asked me this on Twitch. It's blue, which is a little odd. I thought it would be green, but they're not NVIDIA. But if you plug this into a single Titan, it does illuminate the EVGA. Right, so if you win one of these...
Those traces are helium-filled, right? So that the frame signals get there clearer and faster.
Yeah,
and if you're standing over HDMI, the audio is so much clearer.
The technology to them.
Say again, Alan?
It's the Monster Cable guys licensed the technology over to them for...
So we gave away 5 of these. We have a couple more to give away. We'll figure out some interesting ways to do it. So we did do that. We thank EVGA for that. We had quite a few entries into that, and with our secret password last week of Joshy Josh.
And the Funky Bunch.
And all 5 people that I selected through random.org's number selection system had the correct Joshy Josh password on the first try, so we didn't have to redo anything, which is nice. So there you go.
Congratulations.
Better luck next time for everybody but those 5 people. Now, Alan wasn't here last week, so now we're going to ask him about the Samsung V-NAND SSD for the enterprise market.
Is that like the opposite of ANAND?
V-NAND? It's close.
That's his brother, right?
Z-NAND would be the exact opposite.
ANAND and V-NAND.
Okay, so it appears that Samsung is going to take advantage of the increase in longevity of VNAND and put an enterprise SSD. I'm guessing it's not going to show up in any form of a consumer SSD from them, probably because it's going to be costly. There's no price in that press release that we saw, and probably for good reason. Because if you're going to market an enterprise SSD that can make the claim of, 2 to 10 times the longevity.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, and it's twice as fast in writes as well. So they're rating it at 35K array cycles. So, I mean, you're talking like...
What's that in comparison?
3 for the smallest process stuff, 3K.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, they might be able to stretch that if you call it, enterprise or whatever. They bin the stuff better to get, slightly higher than 3, maybe 5K out of the smallest nanometer process. But this is because
they're talking about terabits, right? Per chip?
What do you mean?
Storage capacity.
They're saying it could eventually scale to as much as 1 terabit per chip by stacking additional die vertically.
It could.
Yeah. You buy that? Because that just seems obscene almost.
Well, no, because they're able to stack vertically. Now, all they've done so far is just make the actual channels they're storing the electrons to store a 1 or a 0. They're just making that vertical, right? So if you don't have to have it completely flat, then you have more volume to store, the charge, basically. So that's what lets you get away with, that's the thing that everyone has been working against so far with flash memory in general. Every time they do a die shrink, they end up losing some longevity of how many times you can cycle those bits because, well, the thing is smaller and there's less room to hold the charge. Right. So if you're making these storage things actually vertical and they look more like an actual storage bin now, it just makes sense, right? It's gonna store more stuff and hold that. If you have more charge to store, then you can hold it for longer, theoretically.
But it'll also be hotter, shouldn't it?
It'll be what?
Hotter?
Only while
These
you're
NAND
writing.
chips don't get very hot as it is.
Yeah, but
Well,
if you're
no, I
stacking
mean,
it,
they
that's
do-
always
they
been
do
one of the
draw some
problems.
current when
is
you're writing
3D
to them.
stacking generally leads to hot bits in the center, regardless of how little energy you're using.
Well, I wouldn't say that they're hot.
Okay.
What is the temperature of those electrons that you're storing? I don't know.
You don't
So
think
anyway.
that's an issue?
No, I don't see that. As an
Okay.
But for now, the chips, like per die, it's still 128 gigabit, which is the same as what was going on before with even the flat process. But yeah, in theory, they should be able to create a layer on a die that has, okay, here's one layer, and then basically put some sort of an insulator on there and stack up again even higher and make another layer, and then realize that's just for one die, right? Now, these guys are for example, the Samsung, the 1 terabyte Evo that we reviewed about a month back.
Yep.
It has 8 dies per package. So these dies, if they're able to layer, basically, I would guess 8 is probably what they're estimating that they can layer 8 high on a die, and then you can stack 8 dies within a package. You could basically have you could have like a terabyte of storage in just one flash package.
I want that.
And then in an SSD you can have roughly 8 chips on each side. 8 packages.
So
on each
16
side.
terabyte SSDs?
But going by all these numbers, in theory,
I'm
at some
intrigued.
point.
At an obscene data rate. Like, it
Yeah,
just
it would
seems
be
crazy.
faster than any interface. Yeah. They would need another interface even above PCI Express.
No, you need fiber optics at that point, pretty much.
Well, what can you tell us about SATA 3.2G?
Huh? You mean the hybrid between SATA and PCI? Is that where you're going? That
SATA
one?
Express, whatever it is?
SATA Express?
Yes. Inform me.
I can tell you that there's all sorts of standards people still arguing ad nauseum about that.
Will it improve the sound of my MP3 files?
Oh, absolutely. You have to purchase that solid-state drive from Monster.
Wait, hold on. I'll go back early in the day and get that link because that's.
And you get the SATA
now.
cables from that Swedish company.
Yes.
Right there, you go. That's what it was. Yeah. Let's
What
see
is
what that
this
is.
link?
Hold on.
He's
Oops.
looking at. Wow, what on earth is that?
So
it's-
this is when a hi-fi journalist said that the Super SATA provides better music experience. The most marked and worthwhile difference I felt was in the increased naturalness. Stupid thing in both
Is this-
the sound of instruments and voices, which seemed more organic, humane, and less electronic, and the
But
music's
they refer to
rhythmical
him as the
progression.
scarred or hi-fi journalist. So I think people have actually thrown things at him already.
Somebody, this was recently somebody posted this?
I don't know. This was from 2010. Stewart adds that he does not know how a
Okay.
SATA cable can affect the sound quality, but still a fuzzy statement that the cable rejects interference, highlights the details, and provides airier instruments and enhance that experience.
I'm pretty sure we talked about this either on our back channel or on the
We
podcast.
probably
Oh, yeah.
did,
2010.
Because,
That sounds
bits,
familiar.
not analog signals. It doesn't sound any better. It just, if you miss bits, it will not sound at all.
But
Yeah.
no, you got to massage them and turn them on. Because if your
And
bits are
surround
turned
them by
off, it just doesn't
helium
sound right.
and gold plate.
I hate to say it, but that crossfire thing is actually more useful just because it lights up. Now, if that SATA cable lit up...
It's SLI, Alan. It's SLI.
Oh, is it SLI? Sorry.
Are you trying to piss off everybody at the same time?
How can I get everybody
Listen,
mad at Ryan?
I can
Let's
mix these
try
names
this
up
on.
because I never do it myself. I just have freaking like one video card.
Well, let's talk about a potential for a new optical interconnect because Thunderbolt, or what was it called before? Light Peak.
Light Peak,
Jeremy,
which
tell
is a
me-
better thing than Thunderbolt.
It's better
because
it's better
Thunderbolt
than-
makes
It
no
was fiber
fucking
optics.
sense.
Yeah. Go ahead,
Stupid
Jeremy.
Apple and their copper fetish
Anyway.
went and ruined it all.
What is this potential new optical interconnect?
Well, it's going to be for servers.
All
this
right,
is
I'm
not going
done.
to be something for external appliances, but they're talking about 1.6 terabits. Most server interconnects right now that you can buy are 40 to 100 megabits. So, more than an order of magnitude faster. So it's going to be interesting to see what their partnership with Corning, because apparently this is also a different type of fiber optic cable, is actually
think they
going
made
to
my
pan
sighting.
out. Now, I take offense to the fact that they're calling the connector an MXC connector because that's already taken up. Yes, it's ancient, no one uses it anymore, but at the same time, that it was already used.
Hey, eventually we're going to run out of acronyms, and we got to reuse old ones.
Yeah, well.
Because
all right.
how many acronyms can you do with 3 letters? Quick, Alan. What, 2 to the 3rd power?
I don't know math.
Math hard.
3 choose 26 or 24, no?
It's
Because
26
TLA
to
is
the
already
third.
taken for a 3-letter acronym.
26 to the
Pretty
third.
handy, eh?
But no, it's going to be neat to see, if Intel, finally actually does put out a fiber optic interconnect, and if it can hit the speeds they're talking about.
Sure.
Well, we're going to have something to do with those stacked flash chips Allyn was just talking about.
Well, they can charge a lot more for it because it's enterprise technology. So
Oh, yeah.
they'll probably have some more impetus to make this, which kind of leads us into the next story that Scott posted about. He kind of mentions that ASUS never sold the Thunderbolt EX, and trust me, I got a lot of crap for it because we talked up this card quite a bit. We have one, we use it. It works great, by the way. But Intel may have bigger plans. Let's see. Scott wrote here that motherboard vendors and system builders can easily move to implement USB 3.0. Intel addresses this problem with a reference PCI Express by4 add-in card to be produced and marketed by select ODM partners. Why are we not showing this picture? Show this picture. Remember this?
Because your face is so cute.
This was from 19 months ago. Remember that? That was.
This is from 1999, and it still used fiber optics.
Thunderbolt is basically, obviously, the marriage of PCIe and DisplayPort, as he wrote. The reference design plans, both a GPIO header and internal DisplayPort connection are required on motherboards wishing to support this add-in card. And I think that's kind of the difference, right? Is this is using an external DisplayPort connection, and it's not pretty by any stretch of the imagination.
But it has holes.
But it's
in
damn
the
functional.
in the shroud.
It's damn functional, right? It's like it even
Now,
comes with the cable.
how many motherboards come with internal DisplayPort connections right now?
Yeah. I don't know. He says that the initiative seems more like an attempt to defer most of the cost of Thunderbolt implementation to a down-the-line upgrade option. And he does feel bad for ASUS. And my understanding is, if I were to guess, they have a lot of these devices sitting on a shelf in a warehouse someplace, just
Down by the river.
pissing and moaning about it.
Guess what feature is coming to the next generation of ROG boards?
Yeah. Well, they can't sell them. They can't give them away. They can't do anything with them. So they can give them to us because we have lots of motherboards that can use them. So keep that in mind, ASUS. JJ, I know you're listening. Let's talk about AMD and some market share changes. So we had 2 different stories come out about AMD and market share. One is AMD gains GPU market share from last quarter, but this is one of those more complex stories because it includes things like APUs and integrated graphics on the Intel side. And AMD, a quote, now enjoys a 5.8% lead in total market share over NVIDIA. But that's obviously that counts APUs. What's maybe more interesting to our readers is, actually, I do find this statistic from JPR very interesting. JPR's John Petty Research claims an average of nearly 1.4 GPUs available per system. Now that means that
You have the integrated graphics
Yeah.
of like an i5, i7, i3, as well as an add-in board.
Yep. So that's kind of, I think that's higher than I would have thought.
Yeah, I
Well,
think
it's almost every other machine
Yeah.
has an extra GPU in it.
Yeah. Which is interesting and pretty neat. So I a lot of people is like, oh, AMD's got a 5.8% lead in total market share over NVIDIA. Keep in mind that counts APUs, and NVIDIA doesn't make those.
Well, they do, but they're called Tegra,
Yeah, and they're not included in this research because this is only PCs.
and they still aren't selling many Tegra.
Well, they're not, but they wouldn't be included if they did. Now, the next story that came out a little bit later looks at only add-in cards, and this is maybe a little bit more interesting. This is also from JPR, who listed that AMD actually increased their market share from 35.7 to 38% this quarter to quarter, and NVIDIA obviously went down from 62 to 64.3. It will not surprise you, S3 went from 0.0% to 0.0%, and Matrox went from 0.0% to 0.0%. Yeah, 0.0 leaves less room for error there.
So S3 is no longer on the verge of failure.
Oh.
Yeah, I had to do it.
Oh, you've been waiting years for that one, haven't you?
It's been a long time since they died in the Asian market and finally got off the map. Yeah.
So NVIDIA experienced a total decrease of 8.9% versus AMD's increase of 2.3%, I guess.
So they got a larger share of a shrinking market.
Yes, it did shrink by 750,000 units, apparently. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, more of a smaller pie is still more than you were going to have otherwise. Right? And I think most people, we had reports in the last 2 weeks talking about how PC gaming was what was holding up, the PC market as a whole. And I think last quarter of this year, maybe not Q3, but Q4 of this year, Q1 of next year will be good purchase opportunities for people. And I would expect there to be an increase quarter to quarter in those areas as well. So
do you think
good news for
that
AMD.
Steam has helped support a lot of that, or is it just gaming on PCs in general?
How do you mean, what would Steam have done? You mean just...
Because, we've got sales, we have instant availability, you have ease of use.
So what's interesting is I pay attention to the gaming market mostly through podcasts. I don't really have a lot of extra time to read a bunch of gaming websites, but what I'll do is while I'm cutting the grass or running or driving to and from work, I listen to gaming podcasts. And it's been an interesting shift over the last 2 to 3 years, maybe even a little bit less than that, of all of these website reviewers and game journalists. A lot of them have converted over from gaming exclusively on consoles to now bitching and moaning when a PC version of a game is not available at launch because they see the benefit, right? Like Saints Row 4 came out this week, and they were playing. I was watching some people do a playthrough. It was actually the Giant Bomb guys do a playthrough of Saints Row 4, and they were complaining the whole time because they're playing on 360 and the frame rate was dropping and the image quality was poor. And he was, I was playing this on a GTX680 at home, and it was so much a better experience. And then there's a lot of people complaining about the fact that GTA 5 was going to come out on the consoles first, and more, they haven't officially announced it, but it will probably be out on the PC some months later, and that would be the best experience for it. But you're going to have to wait if you want to do that. And it's been, I think, because the consoles finally started to show their age the last 2 years, where these games that are really impressive visually start to suffer on the consoles, and they can really stretch their legs in the PC. I think that's the biggest draw for this. And what's interesting is once you get these mainstream journalists and media type to go, I'm going to game on a PC, all those other people that read them and like to listen to what they have to say are going to go, maybe I'll give that a shot. And I think that maybe has a lot to do with it too. But Steam as an ecosystem is by far, our preferred one here that I like to use. Anytime I have to download a game on Uplay or Origin, or God, if I had to go to a retail establishment, that would be awful. But I complain if I'm not using Steam. So
yeah, I think it's kind of interesting in that you can buy a $400 computer and it'll do many things for you. You add a $200 video card and you can play any game out there at 1080p at high quality to ultra quality settings. So it's it's kind of a nice situation for PC games to be in because they have instant access. They have a pretty painless DRM if you're dealing with Steam. Not so much with Uplay or Origin at this time. Hopefully those will improve. But yeah, you have a productivity machine that you add in a $200 graphics. You can suddenly have 3 monitors, and you can game at 1080p at ultra quality settings and not have a problem.
Maybe Origin is going to try to get some goodwill over Steam. Speaking of that, Scott posted a story talking about the Origin return policy.
That's called a segue, Ryan. Segue. I'm going to segue you
Thanks
into...
for ruining it. Thanks for destroying it.
Far more useful than that personal transport vehicle.
So Origin announced a return policy that is as follows. Within the first 7 days of purchase, or if you pre-ordered it within 7 days of the game's release, you can get a full refund of an EA game up to the first 24 hours after you start it the first time. So the first time you start it, within that 7 days, you have 24 hours to play it, and then figure out if it sucks and get a full refund. And that's pretty awesome, right? Because that's I remember when the Google Play Store, whatever it was called, Android App Store at the time, first launched. That was one of its big selling points. Was if you download an app for $6 and it crashes on iOS, is that still the case? You can't get a refund? Yeah, Ken says yes, it's still the case. But on Android, you can. I think it's within. Yeah, you might have to do it within like a few hours, maybe. But you can get a refund for it. You can say, I don't want to pay for this anymore. And they handle it. You don't have to like fight for it or anything like that. And I thought that was really cool because, one way to scare away people from using your app stores, if you download apps that don't run on your devices, because Android was kind of segmented differently than iOS, that would piss a lot of people off. And it's interesting to see Origin do this. And I think Scott mentioned this. If he didn't mention it in the story, we mentioned it in our chat about how many people would have returned SimCity had this policy been around when the SimCity launch occurred, which is interesting to think about. It's unfortunately past my 7-day launch window for that too. And he does point out that this is not really something Valve can compete against because they resell so many other publishers' titles. It would be a huge amount of work to get them to all to agree to some kind of global return policy option. But with
how
all
many
the sales,
problems of Valve titles have we seen?
Well, how many Valve titles
lately?
are there lately?
No, I'm talking about just issues with Steam games in general.
Okay, so not Valve titles, just Steam games.
I mean they have a pretty hefty vetting process.
Sure. But this could also just be if the game sucks, right?
We'll just offer it in green light for $5.
Steam sells a lot of crappy games, I'm sure.
Yeah, but you shouldn't expect to be able to return a game if it sucks.
Ken is saying you should not expect to be able to return a game if it sucks, and I think that that's the wrong way of thinking.
What?
I think if the
never
game
been able to.
sucks, no, he says you've never been able to. Maybe since you've been buying games, you used to be able to return PC games on CD-ROM, and then
After you burned a copy.
after you burned a copy or didn't like it, and eventually they stopped that because of piracy, right? And here you don't have to worry about piracy because once you return the game, you have no access to it, right? That's part of the benefit to the publisher on this DRM scheme.
Yeah, guys, let me go ahead and rent that copy of Diablo back in 1997.
Yeah.
So I don't think
I hate it. I read it and hated it.
There's all kinds of other issues game developers get into. Can I buy a game, beat it in 24 hours, and then get a refund for it? I don't know if they track that. Yeah, but I mean, maybe they say if you've played it for more than 3 hours or something. I don't know if there's any more stipulations in that. But yeah, you have to worry about that. But I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with allowing people to get a refund if...
Return a movie ticket if the movie sucks.
No, you can't. But maybe a great movie theater would be one to go, hey, we have a guarantee. If you don't like the movie, we'll give you a half off your next one or something like that, right?
But
I mean, there's all kinds of
we'll
opportunities.
just sell you
Origin
that
that
$10
started
worth
that
of
off?
popcorn at retail, which is like
$10.
$1.50.
Yeah. So I think that's a great move from EA. Now they're only, I say it's only EA products, but that's all Origin sells, and EA makes like everything almost. So I think it'll be really interesting. Could it backfire on them? Maybe, but I think it's a great gesture to the community that says, hey, if you buy a game from us that you really think is awful, get a refund. And If I buy a TV at Best Buy and it sucks, I can get a refund on that. Well, you maybe have to pay a restocking fee. There's no restocking fee for digital bits, so
Yeah.
there will be. But the NSA will charge the restocking fee because now they have to undo all the traffic that they thought you were using for that. I think our last news story is here. Jeremy or Josh or somebody, tell me, what is an AMD R-series processor?
Do it, Jeremy. R. Say R-series.
Wow. She'd be an embedded processor. It's perfect for essentially what they're talking about is network attached storage, point of sale devices, standing game kiosks, as I mentioned, Vegas and slot machines. It's kind of interesting in that they're fairly low TDP. Two of the three have a 35 watt TDP, one has a 17 watt TDP. One's a quad core, the other two are dual cores. But the nifty thing is that they'll be permanently attached to a motherboard, and you can pair them with 6460 or 6760 and actually support up to 6 screens off of this little itsy-bitsy, not really producing much heat machine. Which I think for a lot of people that are actually
frame rate it
multiple,
on 6 screens.
Okay.
Don't frame rate it on 6 screens, okay?
Oh, yeah. No, I wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
But if you're in an airport, you don't really care that the flights are not refreshing at the exact same time, do you?
No.
Or at least by that couple of picoseconds. So it's going to be interesting to see. And again, they're also doing it for more than just that sort of point of sale or graphics driven kiosk. They're actually going to set it up for network attached storage, for a couple other things that AMD is not traditionally thought of as entering. So, the TDPs are nowhere near the point where you're talking about mobile devices like a cell phone, but it's getting there. And hopefully what they're saying is that it's going to be about, what do they say, about 2.5 times the performance per dollar as a comparable i3 system. It might be a way for AMD to get a couple more bucks coming in from a market segment they're not usually known for.
Actually, they are. Their APUs have been selling in a lot of embedded stuff. And many years ago, when some of the first, the digital slot machines, AMD/ATI were some of the first guys in there. So they definitely have a foothold. But if you really consider how many slot machines are sold worldwide versus just video cards in general, you can see why this is not a huge moneymaker for them.
One thing I could not figure out is what it's based on. I don't know if you had any research on that, Josh.
I believe it's Trinity/Richland.
Okay.
/Richland.
Well, it's the same chip.
Yeah,
just
yeah.
different
No, you're right.
BIOS. Yeah.
I agree. All right. Maybe that's what the R stands for?
I don't know.
Probably not. All right, let's get into our hardware software picks of the week. Mine is a motherboard that we just got in for some new processor testing. And I'm going to take it out of the packaging here.
Now it's not a collector's edition anymore.
Well, yeah.
What have you done?
So this is a beast of a motherboard. This is the EVGA X79 Dark. This is a new board, just came out a week or two ago. And this is for the LGA Socket 2011 processors.
It's only $399.99.
It's only $399.99. It's for Sandy Bridge E and upcoming Ivy Bridge E parts. You can see it's got a lot of SATA ports. It's got some cool things on here, like let's see if we can show any of this in these photos. If I'll have to use the, we'll have to use the actual motherboard here, such as the right-angled ATX power connector on the side, which I think is pretty cool.
Ooh, interesting.
Right, it's got two 8-pin secondary ATX power connections down here underneath the heatsink. It has a
octagonal cooler.
Auxiliary.
Who ships an octagonal cooler? Oh wait, no, it's not an octagon. It's a sextagon. Sextagons.
It has an auxiliary 6-pin PCIe connector here to give you some extra juice on the PCI Express lanes for when you're running triple and quad SLI. It has support for quad SLI, which I guess is another feature worth pointing out. They do some cool stuff here. It's got dual LAN, USB 3, 4 ports on there, Bluetooth.
By the 24-pin connector.
The dip switches are by the 24-pin connector. What do those do?
Turn on PCIe slots selectively.
Oh, you can turn off PCIe Express slots. Turn off PCI Express slots selectively through the dip switch here on
Does
the
it have
side.
a PLX chip on it?
No, it doesn't need one because this has 40 lanes coming from the
Okay.
processor, right?
Still
they-
makes sense to turn some off.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you instead of having 8 by 8 by 8 by 8, you can have 16 by 16, I guess.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're only doing 2, you can make sure they get all 16 lanes that they need. So there's some really cool stuff on this board. We're going to do a review of it coming up soon. What else here stands out? They've got nice covers on everything. I mean, it's just a well-designed board. Things like the stickers on the memory module slots there tell you which order to put them in. It says very clearly, use the following configurations for DIMM installation. Populate in slot 1357 first, then populate in any other slots for more than 4 DIMMs.
Does it say please remove before using?
No, it doesn't actually.
Uh-oh.
It's
Troublesome.
This is one of the things like you get when you have a company that is 100% based in the U.S. that is doing all the marketing and stuff for it. EVGA recommends applying 1.65 volts or less when setting the DIMM voltage. This will support longer-term stability. Oh, it does say remove this sticker before use right underneath that.
Hey,
So they
lawyers
got you
got a
covered.
hold of the stickers.
They got you covered, Jeremy.
Uh,
There's a lot of cool stuff on this board that we will dive into later. I'm not gonna tell you right away to buy it because it is $400. But if you're buying a $1,000 processor, maybe a $400 motherboard won't be too out of the line. We'll do some overclocking goodness with it. I wonder if this lights up. Does this light up? Maybe.
No.
The EVGA. No.
doesn't look like it.
I will fix it.
But it's all worth it if your Facebook post just gets shared with everyone. You'll be so popular on Facebook.
I will be popular. I'm already popular on Facebook, Josh. I don't need your smack talk for that. So that's the X79 Dark, and it's expensive, but has some pretty cool features and stuff there. So more on that coming up soon. There's their BIOS and overclocking stuff that they showed at QuakeCon as part of this as well. So more soon. Jeremy, what do you got?
Well, it was finally time to retire the creative Inspire 5.1 Digital 5500.
Jesus.
Wow, that's like 12 years old.
Oh, it's gone through a hard life. My cat used to like
It's
to
hard
do things
luck
to the top
life
of it.
for us.
Yes, but it has finally died, and so there was something on special which I decided would be worth picking up, which is very shiny, so there's no way in hell you're going to see it, but it is the Logitech Z506 5.1 surround sound system, which for us Canucks is currently on sale for $70. You can pick it up at Newegg for $90, but it is ridiculously easy to set up, including the time it took me to tear down the old 5.1 system.
Yep.
It probably took me 20 minutes to put this together. You plug 3 plugs in for a 5.1. Essentially, it gives you 3.5
Three
mil
plugs enter, 1 plug leaves.
Yes. But if you're trying to fake 5.1 on 2.1, you can do it
But
with 1
did you
plug.
break a deal and face the wheel?
Lord.
Wheel
No.
of fish. But with 3 plugs, boom, you've got 5.1 sound. It was immediate. Like most of my machines, this one has a personality, so I had to reboot it to actually get it to finally work. But super easy. And one of the nice things is that the center channel has a clip, so you can mount it to the top of an LCD monitor, just like you do a camera, which I thought was a really nice touch. And for this price, hey, not bad.
Very cool, Josh. You're up
Me?
next. Yeah, you.
Oh. Love, exciting and new. Come aboard. We're expecting you. The Love Boat. Da 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 da.
All right, now on to Allyn.
Okay, in memory of them cutting apart the Love Boat somewhere in India,
Okay.
I bring you this
waiting for the
metal
connection.
monstrosity. The new The all-new ASUS. Is that trademark and trade?
I believe it is. Yeah, no, we can't use
The
that.
Raider Express. It's finally available. We saw this announced at CES, and a whole 8 months later, you can finally buy this for $350.
And not a single
rounding
review
up.
anywhere.
So this is a
240 gigs.
PCI Express 2.0.
And it's got a pretty metal case around it. Pretty, pretty, pretty. Now you know why I'm saying love.
Alan, do you have any thoughts on that? I know we don't have one yet, so
We don't know what's in it.
cool.
Yeah.
Same with the Love Boat. Every week.
I mean, it's probably I don't know, some form of a generic RAID chip just with a pair of SSDs behind it mounted on a PCB. That's
Alright.
really probably all there is to it. I just hope they went with a good RAID solution that is able to scale properly for solid state.
All right. Now, since you're already on the screen, we might as well talk about whatever the hell you picked.
So I grew up playing a Commodore 64 computer.
They didn't have computers in 1948.
Yeah, I get off my lawn. All right, so Commodore 64 computer was this engineering marvel, and yeah, at the time it was actually pretty good.
Sure.
It was like a 1 megahertz processor. Wow, it was just blazing,
Mega.
and it had a big honking power supply, and it was like all built into this keyboard thing, and there was a lot of chips in there and everything, and years and years later. Actually, this is years ago now, believe it or not, because you have to get these things used. There's a Commodore 64 Direct-to-TV.
I'm really happy that you do not have a 3D camera when you pop that up.
I know, right?
Because the
Like,
shaft
I don't
and
need to see your
knob
joystick
could
in
have
my
It would
given
face.
you
have
a
poked your
stroke.
eye out. My joystick would have poked your eye out.
Yeah.
So what they did was they basically took a Commodore 64, the entire system, shrunk it down to one chip. This thing is powered off of AA batteries, and you plug it into your television, and that's it. It's a full-blown Commodore. It has like a little menu system they added to it, so you can select games with the joystick without actually having the keyboard.
Good idea.
Yeah, but the really cool thing about this is if you are
It
a
still
hardware,
only has 16K of memory.
well, it has a flash memory to store the games.
What's your favorite
on
game
it? My favorite Commodore 64 game
Moonlander.
that's on it?
that's on it, Paradroid. That's actually the reason I bought this. Paradroid was pretty cool. So here's the other cool thing about this hardware that's in here is if you
That's
crack this
the
guy
scale.
open. Yeah, I know. Look at that whopping native resolution. It's
320 by
just spans
200.
your whole screen. You need to plug it into a 4K display just to be able to see all the pixels of that.
I
that
can
thing.
frame rate it if you want.
Yeah, exactly. You're gonna frame rate Commodore 64.
Yeah. Good, great smoothness, I think.
Funny thing is, if you frame rated a Commodore 64, you'd be able to actually see the bits that were being fast loaded off of the drive on the screen.
Yeah, you wouldn't need capture. You could just do it yourself.
Just count
Yeah,
it.
you just count.
But I don't know,
Um,
Alan. I see yours, and they're not as versatile.
well,
I have got Miss Pac-Man and Super Pac-Man.
Well, you got
Oh,
that backwards.
sweet.
But that's
Backwards,
fine.
but close enough.
Yes, but backwards.
so
but hey,
so if you crack
I don't
this
play
guy
them very
open,
much. You can tell by the dust.
the PCB actually has mount points for the second joystick port, the
Ooh.
1541 floppy drive, among other things. So you can actually take this guy and add, like people have hacked these things and added other ports to them, so you can actually plug in a second joystick. You
Okay.
can plug in a floppy drive, like an actual Commodore floppy drive, power it
So
off of this
Battlezone,
fabric
right?
joystick.
Yeah,
Like the guy in
Say
the IRC said.
What?
Battlezone.
Battlezone.
The
Battlezone. Two
Yeah.
joysticks. Battlezone.
So this is a
Oh.
Superboy.
Superboy.
Super pipe.
Oh,
And
Is that
it-
super pipes?
It built
who's
in.
a super boy? Who's a super
It
boy?
built in ports for controllers.
That's friggin' sweet.
It uses the actual cartridges. I don't think this has any.
Does it have a video
Battery.
out?
You still have to
plug it
blow
into
on
the
them?
TV?
Battery life.
It has composite out.
It does have
That's
composite out.
That freaking rocks. That like really rocks. And you even have like batteries in it.
It uses a cell phone battery.
On Nokia.
So listen. If you want to demo one of those on the podcast, you have to have Contra in it, so you can freaking up up down down action.
Do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do.
Oh no, we'll get taken down from YouTube. Stop. Stop.
Protected content. Protected content.
Dun, 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 dun.
We just yell.
Dun, 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 dun. Ooh, World 1. Here we go.
We're gonna get taken down from YouTube.
It's totally worth it.
That's it. We've lost Ryan.
What?
Now it's time for him to clear his throat and disconnect.
Boom, 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 boom. Man, this is awesome. Oh, 200
Are you
points.
so happy?
All right, I'm just kidding. So that's it, I
No,
guess.
already, didn't he?
That's everybody. It's everybody from the show.
So
I
have we
guess.
gone past an hour?
Oh God, yeah.
Well, a long time ago.
show tonight.
I think we got past an hour when you were talking about the DirectCU 770,
Yeah,
actually. So
going on ad nauseum.
thank you, everybody, for joining us. This has been the PC Perspective podcast. We do it every week. If you know what we're saying. Wednesdays at 10 p.m. We have to put it on the calendar. We're very busy people. Wednesdays at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. We record it live at pcper.com/live. And then if you miss it, you can catch it again, pcper.com/podcast. We post it the next day. That's where you can get the RSS feed, the direct download, the YouTube embeds.
Not this week.
What? Not what?
We're gonna get taken down.
We're not going to get taken down. Or you can go to youtube.com/pcper and you can see all the videos we do there, in addition to our weekly podcasts. So if you come to the pcper.com/live, you can join in our chat room and make fun of us as well, which is part of the deal that we like to communicate with you guys that way. It makes me feel better when everybody makes fun of Josh. It's just one of the things that we have
It
to go
makes me
through.
feel better too.
I thought it would. I thought you were into that type of thing. So self-deprecation, not defecation.
I call it
Deprecation.
S&M, but
Well,
whatever.
all right, that's easier too. So we'll be back next week with another riveting episode while we discuss PC hardware and stuff like it, I guess.
Things.
I'm Ryan Shrout.
I'm Jeremy Hellstrom.
I'm Josh Walrath.
I'm Alan Maldonado.
Bye.